Hello to everyone who's joining and trickling in here. Welcome. I am Emily Deach. I'm the Vice President of the Brown Club of Washington, D.C. And welcome to In the Kitchen, Cuisine of the African Diaspora. We're going to do a bit of a cooking segment that's a cooking demo plus that will also launch us into themes that we'll discuss in a panel later today. Oh, there we see Peter. Welcome. Okay, so because I don't want to take center stage, I want to give as much time to our chefs as possible. I will give a quick framework for this conversation, say hello to these gentlemen, and let them take it from here. So again, the framework for our demo today is to do some cooking and creativity with these two volunteered chefs, but to also open up some questions about creativity, resourcefulness during COVID, what constitutes American cuisine, what is the cuisine of the African diaspora, and how does that play into American cooking? And how does that open up other conversations about identity, belonging, nationhood that we're all wrestling with at the moment? So without further ado, I'm going to toss to our two chefs. We have there Peter Prime, who's of DC locality. He's based in Northeast with his restaurant Cane, that's nationally acclaimed. And Ian Knauer, who is in Pennsylvania, beaming in from afar from his farm and cooking school located there. So Ian, tossing to you to take it from here.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Peter. Hi, everybody. We're trying to figure out the funnest way to do this and how to incorporate sort of what I'm all about, which is local food, with what Peter does. So we came up with this idea that I would send a box of different stuff from the farm to Peter, and then he would just be able to play with it. So on Monday, I went to the farm, and of course it's January, so there's slim pickings. It's not like it is in August or September. But I was able to send some root vegetables and some of the greens that are growing in the greenhouse. And it should be, I need to give credit where credit is due. My wife is the farmer. I'm not the farmer. She ropes me in to like help fix the greenhouse once in a while, or like clean the carburetors. But I'm mostly the cook. So I have to give her credit. Her name's Malika, and her farm is called Roots to River.
You earned spouse points there.
Yeah, I know. Rather, I didn't lose any spouse points. So she's growing this amazing kale in the greenhouse. It's a variety called Judy's kale. There's a farmer in the Poconos named Judy who has selected this kale over the years. And when I touched base with Peter earlier this afternoon, the first thing he said was, "Oh my God, the kale!" It's very cool, and we can talk more about it when we get into it a little bit. So anyway, Tuesday the box showed up at Peter's, and how did you feel about it, Peter? I'm looking over there because I see him on the phone too.
So I was like you. I was a little worried. I heard I was going to be doing a farm box in January. I was like, wow, I'm gonna get a box of roots. But I got this amazing kale. This kale is sugary sweet. I've not had this kind of kale any time of year. It's unreal. I'm really enjoying it. And and I would love to hear more about the vermouth. Because radicchio vermouth, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So what part of my job is to take all the stuff that didn't sell at the market and turn it into stuff that we can sell. And it's not going to make it to the next market. And so a couple of years ago, my wife handed me a crate of radicchio, which has become a lot more popular, I think, in recent years. But, you know, Americans, especially outside cities, aren't used to that kind of vegetable. So she was having trouble selling it. And so I had just come back from Spain, where they make this sort of bittersweet vermouth. And they use gentian root and spices and herbs and stuff like that. But the gentian root is very bitter, and radicchio is bitter. And so my brain went to vermouth, as it often does go to wine. And so I infused some wine with the radicchio and some other herbs. And that just started a rabbit hole for me, because it ended up being really delicious. So now we're starting to scale up and experiment with that. And she grows radicchio just for the vermouth, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's so herbaceous, and just so many notes in there. It's really inspiring, delicious stuff. I've never had anything like that.
Cool. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought right away when I had the kale, I was going to do something gray, something more wintry, but because of the sweetness and how delicious it was, it reminded me of a kale salad that I used to do. And we used to use Saba gastrique, but I've been playing with sorrel a lot recently, which is a drink that I grew up drinking during Christmas time back home. And I've made some reductions with it, and it's so complex. It has a lot of cinnamon and clove in it. Sometimes we actually reinforce it with actual cinnamon and clove, and it just makes a really intense syrupy gastrique. And I decided I'm gonna make some of that with the kale. Can you tell me a little bit about the zucchini relish?
Sure. Yeah, I forgot I put that in there. The zucchini relish is actually my grandmother's recipe, and she, if you have a garden and you make the mistake of planting more than one zucchini plant, then you don't know what to do with it all. And so she would turn it into this sort of sweet, sour, kind of like bread and butter pickle, and put that in jars. And so this summer, Malika handed me a crate of zucchini that wasn't going to make it another week, and so I put it into I made the zucchini relish with it. That relish, actually, my grandmother's recipe had twice as much sugar, and so I cut the sugar in half for that, and it's still really sweet. I like it with like a cheese plate, that sort of thing, or on a hamburger or something like that. You had mentioned the sorrel that you've been playing with, and sorrel is I looked up the etymology of the word sorrel. Because it's a really interesting flavor. Other folks might know it as hibiscus. And you see it a lot in the Caribbean, and you see it in African cuisine. And the word means sour, which is what it is. But the interesting thing about the flavor of sorrel is that it is sour without being acidic. It's not like lemon juice is also sour, but it's also acidic. Sorrel is just a sourness. And there are other plants that are not the hibiscus plant that we call sorrel. And around here it grows wild, and it looks like a little 3-leaf clover, and the leaves look like little hearts. You've probably seen it. I'm sure you can find it in parks and cities, and it grows like in the cracks of sidewalks. And it has the same flavors that the sorrel that you're using. It's just sour and not acidic, which is sort of interesting.
And I'm going to jump in just because you had such a good note, Ian, about kind of the etymology there and the history of that. We had a note from one of our viewers who said that this is awesome and appropriate since the name for kale in Swahili, if I'm mispronouncing that, apologies, means push the week or stretch the week, because it's a way to get your food supplies to last through the end of the week. So it feels like perfectly fitting for awesome. Kind of like the frame of this conversation. So wanted to let you all know that.
Very cool. Peter, I have a question about your gastrique. When you make it, do you start with a caramel?
For this one, I just do a reduction for I use a cup of dried hibiscus, dried sorrel, cup and a half of water, and about a half a cup of sugar, and just reduce it until it gets really syrupy.
Right. Cool.
You see it really well here, but the sorrel really puffs up. And and I got some cinnamon and stuff in there, some clove that reduces. You get it down to something like this.
Got it. So it's got some viscosity. It sort of coats your mouth a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. that's what the syrup does, and then we're gonna hit it with a little balsamic, and yeah,
Cool.
it's really interesting.
Very nice. See, you have that bottle of hot sauce that I put in there too.
I do. So we treat a lot of fruits with like a chow. We do lime, salt, pepper, and then hot spicy peppers. I'm gonna use your the hot sauce in there. Awesome. And create the chow effect. And then so I have some of the kale in the bowl with fresh lime juice. Gonna be some pepper in there. And then I'm gonna do something. I have some blood orange, some papaya, some mango. So I'm getting things that these are the fruits that are available in the market, in the supermarket at this time of year. And the only time of year that I get pawpaw or papaya that reminds me of the way I used to eat it when I was growing up and stuff. It's really sweet. In the summer, it's watery. I'm not sure where it comes from then. But this time of year, it really reminds me of the papaya that I knew growing up. So that with the salt, the lime, and the pepper, this is like a classic kid's treat growing up. You do it with mango, whatever fruit is in season, a little garlic, and I'm gonna put that whole treatment together here over the kale, some hot sauce.
Nice. So the hot sauce, when we make the hot sauce, one of the things I really believe in is the more variety of fruit that you can get in what you're making, the better it's going to taste, because it's going to bring different aspects to it. This is true of wine too. You know, the greatest wines in the world have a whole bunch of different grapes in them. You think about Bordeaux or Chateauneuf du Pape, or coffee is the same. You know, the best coffees I've ever had are not single origin. They take an acidic bean, or they'll take a heavily roasted bean, and they'll mix it together. And so with the hot sauce, I try to do that also. So we actually have some Caribbean peppers in there. There's a Trinidadian seasoning pepper in there, which is not spicy, but gives you a really floral flavor. And so we, taking from all these different chilies and bringing them together, so you get something that's the best, better than their individual pieces. And also, this is my bottle that I keep at home. I don't.
Well used and right at hand. That's how I like to. That's the way we cook it. I can taste the balance. The Trinity seasoning pepper you're talking about, that is the foundation of all of our cooking. It when you put it in your marinade, the level and the depth of flavor that you get, it's and it's without heat. We love our heat and stuff, I have a hot sauce with Moruga scorpion, and we love the really spicy stuff as well. But the level of pepper flavor that you get from that, it's a really amazing pepper. Where do you get yours?
My wife grows them.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how many varieties of chili she grew this year, but every year it's more, and it's like a dozen or 20 or something like that. It's really fun.
I cannot get enough. I can't. That's awesome.
We'll send you some next summer. One of my favorite things to do with the farm crew every August and September is stand out in the field with them and get them each to eat the hottest chili that we have. And they never want to do it, and then they always are glad that we do it, because we end up sweating and crying, and our noses are running, and we're all doing it together, and we sort of like go through this thing. And then of course the endorphins kick in. So that really spicy fruit tricks your brain into producing adrenaline and other wonderful chemicals. And then you just feel like you've tripped with these people, but you just ate a pepper.
Sounds cruel, but it's kind.
In the end.
We have a comment from somebody who wants to know if folks can order or buy the hot sauce, and I imagine the answer is yes.
Yes, the answer is yes. You can get it on my website, which is thefarmcookingschool.com. You can also get it on my wife's website, which is rootstoRiverFarm.com.
Excellent, thank you.
So Peter, I'm glad that you did a salad with this kale. It's unusual in the fact that the stem isn't too tough. So when I cook these, or even when I eat them raw, I always include the stem. It's super crunchy. It's like shatteringly crisp. In a salad, it almost acts like a crouton. It's that crunchy. So I don't know if you use these or not, but you could totally throw them in there if you wanted to.
So, can you tell me more about the variety of kale, Judy's kale?
Sure. So as I mentioned before, Judy's a farmer in the Poconos here in Pennsylvania, and my wife used to work for her. And Judy was able to select these plants. They're really cold tolerant, which is good for the Poconos because it gets cold up there. So that's sort of bred into them so that they can handle really cold temperatures. They can actually freeze and recover from that. That's also why it's so sweet. Once you get a couple frosts, the greens that can survive, spinach or kale, their sugars get activated. And so you really taste that sweetness come through. This was still delicious before we got a frost, but now it just like, it completely transforms it into, as you said, like kale that you've never had before.
All right, so I'm just doing a little bit of the plate up here. I did also use some of the amazing crispy radishes that you sent. Those are also like, I don't know, it's like sugary mustard.
Yeah, that's a purple daikon, which is pretty cool.
Really beautiful on the inside.
Oh, nice. Yeah, gorgeous.
Very thin slice on there.
You tend to, I know chefs in general try to find balance in food. And so when you came across sweet kale, your brain instantly went to sour sorrel to bring some balance there. And of course, the fruit is also sweet and you have salt and then you have the acidity of the lime. Do you tend to gravitate toward bitter flavors also?
So personally, I love bitter flavors. And we have a root bark drink that Malby that I love. I drink coffee beers and stuff. That's my vibe. But you know, I think a lot of Trinidadian food, like for example, the chow that we grew up eating, it's salty, sour, sweet, spicy, and I mean, I feel that's how I try to cook and how most of my food I do hit all notes, and I find different balances depending on what the star ingredient is. But you know, I like to hit the whole palate and just create that experience. You know, that's how I like to eat, and a lot of Trini food is like that.
Yeah.
You know, the Indian food has a lot of relishes. We just, you know, we do a lot of sweet and savory stuff together.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about the influences of cuisines like a Trinidadian cuisine, because you not only have the African influence, but you have other influences that come into it. And so, you know, we're sort of living in a world now where we have all these influences from all over the world that have been baked into our current cuisine, you know, and the beauty of cuisine is that it continues to evolve and it continues to change. And so I personally think it's fascinating to look at a cuisine and look at its etymology, you know, look at its origins, and also look at its evolution, and how, like, there's probably not a whole lot of kale in Trinidad, but by using, you know, the Trinidadian flavors, the sour, the sweet, the salty, but then also a technique like a gastrique, which is French, in incorporating that and sort of tying it all together into something that I wish I could taste because it looks and sounds delicious.
No, you're absolutely right, and you know, as I started to cook professionally, as I, you know, lived in a different country, you know, you start to see the layers of food, you start to see the similarities, things that I thought were 100% Trini, I'm starting to see from, you know, other cultures. I'd never heard of Shadow Benny before, but, you know, I found it as cilantro in a lot of South Asian cooking. It is really fascinating. It's human history. It's the story of, you know, all the things that we've done. It's really interesting and amazing.
Yeah, sort of how to, and you can look at a recipe and see that influence also. You know, I talk a lot about like vegetable flavor bases when I teach at the cooking school, And, you know, you take a mirepoix, which is of course carrot, celery, onion, which is a signature of Europe, right? Or you take, you shift that and you add a green bell pepper, which is a signature of African cuisine. And you see that in New Orleans, right? That's the Holy Trinity. And you'll see that in Brazilian cuisine as well. And so you can sort of like see how humans moved, for better or worse, throughout this planet in the cuisine that they ended up cooking, because it's what they had, and it's because it's what they were used to, and it's because it's the seeds that they brought with them and the seeds that they found here. And like looking at the signature of a recipe like that, I think is just like looking at the signature of a word with the etymology of the word. And you can see not only its origins, but you can also see its travels through the world. And some of that comes from great things like discoveries, and some of that comes from horrible things like slave trade. But the beautiful thing about cuisine is that we all have to eat, and we all want to eat really well. And so to see, you know, chefs like you bringing that history and that signature and that culture to what is essentially an American restaurant, right? It helps the cuisine continue to evolve. Do you consider consider Kane to be an American restaurant?
Well, you know, you saying that made me think about it for the first time. But you know, in a lot of ways, it is. First, it's in America. You know, it's an American restaurant serving Trinidadian food. And one of the things we have done is change the style of the typical Trinidadian carryout. So it is different for Americans, and it's different for a lot of Trinidadians as well, what we're doing. And yeah, we you know, it's like the food and immigrant populations, we're evolving, we're growing. You know, I'm bringing my sensibilities to our food and what I know about restaurants. And yeah, you know, that you know, a lot of that is going on in DC, and that's why I'm so proud to be a part of the food scene here and the exciting food that we have. What's
your favorite recipe or dish that you've developed at Kane so far?
You know, I'm really proud. I haven't developed anything new at Kane. I'm really proud of our curry beef. It's one of my favorite dishes back home, and I think me and the staff, we've come together with a version of it that, I mean, I still eat it every day. And you know, I can't say that I innovated curry beef, but I think we do it so well. I'm really proud of it. Everybody who has it falls in love with it. Yeah, it speaks a lot to the. I mean, it speaks to how Trinidadian food has evolved from a lot of influences. It speaks to how my kitchen has evolved, you know, and the people, you know, the range of people who are cooking Trinidadian food so well. You know, it makes me really proud.
Yeah. Are there specific techniques or ingredients that you use in there that really sort of knocks it out of the park?
So, you know, it's a technique called fungi. It's cooking down the food doing a braise without adding any water.
Oh.
So the curry beef, we cook it, cover it, let it release some of the liquid. You know, you may have to add it. You try to add as little as possible. So just cooking its own liquid. If you don't do it right, you can get very stringy, very dry. But you do it right, the level of flavor that you develop is ridiculous.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Tender, and yeah, you've hit it a lot of fresh herbs at the end. Yeah, I think it's really delicious.
Cool. What cut do you use, just out of curiosity?
Chuck.
Nice.
Yeah, then the whole chuck, cut it up. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. I can't wait until I can come visit. And
yeah, you know, I would love to have you try some of your seasoning peppers.
Yeah, I'll drop them off.
Oh, sorry guys. I wanted to jump in quickly. We only have a few minutes left. So just a couple of quick comments from folks reviewing and one question from me. Peter, I'm curious, when you got the box from Ian, what was your particular lens that you brought to this that would kind of treat the ingredients differently through a Trinidadian American lens versus, you know, like a purely American grown lens, or what do you think, kind of how would you approach that?
You know, it's kind of, you know, it's hard to say that it's everything I do, you know, I can't help but bring my Trinity palette. So I think that definitely influences how I mix flavors and stuff. I'm looking for that sweet and that spice. And in this particular thing, I decided to combine it with the winter fruit that I've been enjoying recently. And then specifically the sorrel to bring it all together. So typically we don't do sorrel during the whole year. It's a Christmas thing, so we've had a lot recently. But I've just been playing with it and doing other things with it. The color is amazing. It's this intense red, and it has all these complex flavors and the sourness that I do enjoy. So yeah, so you know, it influences how I eat, and I try to cook things that I like and bring together flavors that are, you know, yeah.
That's beautiful, thank you. And we have a question from someone, Ian. They want to know if you offer cooking classes, and I know you do. So we'll make sure that they get the information. We have Peter, for you, compliments from Winnie. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. She's from Ethiopia, and she says she's super excited to see you cook live, that she and her partner live in DC, absolutely adore Kane, as do many people, and are eager to see that come back in operations, although you all are still offering catering, yes, and delivery?
We're doing carry out. Yeah.
All right, so we'll leave it to you gentlemen to close out in the next 2 minutes.
Sure. Peter, I'm gonna try your sorrel gastrique. I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to think about it in a way that is sour without acid. And I hadn't put that together before you brought it up earlier this afternoon. So thank you for that. It's a fun way to play with that as a direction to go in. So thank you. And I'm glad that you enjoyed everything in the box. There's some stuff that you didn't even get to, so I'm excited if you end up using the rutabaga or the radicchio tardivo. Let me know how you use that.
I think the gastrique would be great on that. Slightly grilled on a really hot, you know, wilted lightly, and the gastrique over it. I think that would work great.
That's a good idea. Yeah, very cool.
So thank you for this box. I mean, you know, I had the kale, and it was literally what my body needed. I just felt the energy from the live. You know, you presented it so beautifully. It was wrapped with a moist bowl at the bottom, and yeah, it was energizing, and I thank you for that. You don't get a lot during the winter, and I really appreciated it.
Well, I will let.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'll let my farmer wife know that you love the kale. She'll be happy to hear that.
Please do.
Yes, all compliments to the farmer wife. So we had one final question that we didn't fully get to, but I think that's a good springboard to let folks know that we're continuing the conversation at 6 p.m. If you are available, we hope you'll join us. We'll be fleshed out by an expanded panel featuring also, in addition to these two gentlemen chefs, also Mark Bittman of the New York Times, and also Heated, his current website, and Joanna Obenda, who's a historian and scholar at the National Museum for African American History and Culture. And she specializes in cuisine of the African diaspora and stories about those identities that are kind of enmeshed in that. So the question was to you, Peter, and we don't have time to answer now, but do you feel that, do you feel pressure to be authentic as a Trinity chef, or have you adapted in DC? And I think that's a beautiful and perfect question for any cuisine of the African diaspora, because it's all about kind of collecting together these very disparate pieces that are part of colonialism, part of travel, part of world experience, part of adaptability to new environments. And so questions of authenticity and stasis are kind of interesting for diaspora cuisine. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you've changed many times. But anyway, thank you both, and look forward to continuing.
We'll see you soon.
See you. Bye, everyone.